What's up, y'all? Alex Miller from The Eagle here, joined by Robert Cessna. We're in Dallas this week at the annual SEC Media Days. It's officially talking season. Football's right around the corner. A&M will go on Thursday, so we got a long marathon to go, Cease. But today, heard from SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey. We heard from players and coaches from LSU, South Carolina, Ole Miss, and Vanderbilt. I'm trying to think. That's two teams on A&M's schedule this year.
Two teams.
I had to do math for a second. That's always scary. But Cease, what were some of the biggest takeaways from today from either Sankey or any of the coaches or players you heard?
I think it's kind of what we kind of expected. Everybody's asking so many questions about Texas and Oklahoma, whether how it relates to them, the teams they cover, how it relates to the conference, how it relates to college football in general as far as the national scene. And we knew that was coming because Texas and Oklahoma, and we are in Texas, nice turnout by the media. I was wondering how that would go. But it's obvious, and you really can't talk enough about Oklahoma and Texas coming in because it's like, what is everyone's opinion? Like Lane Kiffin, what's his opinion, for example? What is Shane Beamer's? It's easier for us to say, well, it's a tougher deal, it's this and that, it's money, what have you. But it's good to hear everybody else's comments about it. Obviously, everything's going to change. Commissioner Sankey obviously hitting all the high points, all the low points. Of course, you'd say, well, there's no low points. I think when you talk about the future of college football, even he has a rough time, putting on exactly what's it going to look like in 2 or 3 years. I think he tried to accent, no matter what it looks like, you're in the best conference. He touched on, obviously, to me, he'd like to have help from the Congress if possible. If not, the conference will do the best they can with what he mentioned 5 factors. Even if they can only use 1 or 2 or 3 of those factors, meaning the states, the league, they're going to do the best possible for the student athlete and best for the league. I think he touched on a lot of things. He did reference a little bit the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, even though he didn't mention. He talked about we need football because there's one thing that we, as a country, I have to agree with him. One thing we can agree with, whether you're Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, or what have you, is who's going to win a football game. And you don't want to compare that to a life and death situation, but we need unity. He talked about that, and I think what better sport to talk about unity other than football? Sorry, long answer there, Alex.
That's okay. Hey, something else he talked about, as much as there's conversation about Texas and Oklahoma joining the conference, there's already rampant rumors going of, will the SEC expand further with what's going on in the ACC between Florida State and Clemson and their legal proceedings? Thought it was very interesting. He did not double down, he tripled down pretty much and said, look, not right now. He's got an eye on it, but the SEC's at 16, and that's where he sees them being right now.
Yeah, he said he's not a recruiter.
No.
He works for the presidents. He works for the conference. And when you look at the history of the SEC, okay, they had Arkansas and South Carolina in 91. Missouri and Texas A&M comes in 12. Here we are in 24, 12 years later. I don't think he's trying to say in a nice way, I don't think Florida State or Clemson or anybody would come in unless something would happen drastically. And I think he referred to a couple times, you're wasting your time because he wants to focus on the 16. Now, we're the media. If Notre Dame called tomorrow and said, hey, I want to join the SEC over the Big Ten. But once again, he's right. You got to concentrate on the president because they got a lot of fires to iron out in the president. They still haven't decided the league schedule. I had a laugh because someone brought up a good question. They haven't determined yet if 2 teams have the same record, who wins the conference or who gets. They haven't decided that yet. He said the ADs would get together, and I was kind of
quick.
Yeah, and I was kind of laughing, and I think he hit on it. That there's more pressing deals than worrying about what might happen in the courtrooms.
Well, you got to go talk with Harold Perkins. Of course, he was a guy committed to A&M, flipped to LSU on signing day, has been a breakout player for the Tigers. They're trying to retool his role this year and make him more of an impact player on the defense. What did he say about his recruitment and all that as you guys were able to talk with him?
Well, it's funny because if you stay for one player, they roughly meet the media for about 15 to 20 minutes. And what nice is about that is they get the same question about 4 times. And it was funny that the first time Perkins talked about why he wanted to go to LSU over A&M was development. And of course, that kind of makes you scratch your head, like development. Then somebody came back and asked another follow-up question, and he said, well, I didn't mean that. He was talking about LSU has had some great linebackers in recently, and so he felt his development was better there. It really, if you just use that quote, or if you see that soundbite, he didn't really mean he wouldn't get a better, that he wouldn't develop in A&M. He just thought LSU was a better fit for him. And a lot of times that's what I hate about these things. Anything, you have these sound bites, and you can say, the bottom line is, like he said, LSU was also home. He came because of the current hurricane, what have you, and with A&M and Mike Elko. And then later someone asked him about Elko. He said, Elko's a good dude. I mean, a good coach. So once again the SEC is so big, you can't have all the tools. Does A&M wish they have Harold Perkins? Of course, but you could say Torian York had the same kind of freshman year, really, that Perkins did, so you can't have everybody. But it is a nice angle, and I talked to him, so I'm going to write about it, because what else? A&M's played South Carolina. You did a story on that. Obviously, you do look at what affects you, and the 2 schools today at South Carolina. And let's be honest, South Carolina and LSU, why are we writing about them? That's going to be 2 big games for A&M. If A&M would go 0-2 in those games, oh my gosh, it might not be a good season.
Yeah, I was talking to the South Carolina players, and pretty much all of them finally remember that 22 game against A&M where they held on the last second. Pretty much everybody recalled the 100-yard kickoff return to start the game. Luke Doty, who's in the quarterback competition, he was like, I thought the stadium was going to fall apart after that. South Carolina's entering a pivotal season. Obviously, that win over A&M helped springboard to an 8-4 year in Shane Beamer's second season. They were not very good in year 1, took a pretty big step back last year, going 5-7. And so South Carolina is really a team that they're really trying to get it moving forward, or else things may not be so steady in Columbia.
Yeah, I had a laugh as I mentioned. We all had, a bunch of us had lunch together. Shane Beamer is very positive. He talked at the Texas High School Coaches Association, I think it was last year. Nice guy to talk to, but I couldn't tell by his answers if he was trying to convince himself as much as he was trying to convince the media that South Carolina is playing for one of the top 12 spots in the college football playoff. They're coming off of 5-7, and he alluded to, well, when you guys do your picks, we'll probably pick 14th, 15th, or 16th, but we're just right there. And I get it. That's the SEC. If you finish in the top 4, you might be in the college football playoff, whether you're LSU, A&M, or South Carolina. But right now I definitely don't see South Carolina in those top 4.
Well, A&M is not playing Ole Miss or Vanderbilt today or this season. We did hear from each of their coaches and players today, though. Kind of a different side of Lane Kiffin, as he's still mourning the passing of his father Monty last week. With A&M not being on the schedule, not really any A&M related questions there. Although it did kind of feel like he gave a subtle jab at, you got to be careful with the high-profile transfer classes and high school classes. He kind of said there's some teams in this league that have had those recently and they didn't win a lot of games. Kind of felt like he was poking at A&M maybe a little bit. But, Kiffin, pretty steady today. No kind of crazy fireworks from him.
Yeah, I'm actually going to do my column on him. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm going to use the word mellow. He was, I expect Lane Kiffin always to make a big, and I went over to the media, followed him around, Did he have a few one-liners, as Alex mentioned? But he was subdued. Let's be honest. Come on, his dad died. And he's anytime you lose a family member and death in the family, but also his dad was a football coach. So it's like it's a little bit different when you're in family business. When you're with your father a lot in the business. So it was a little bit different, and it was so unusual to see Lane Kiffin in that deal when he got emotional, like when he talked about, I laugh when Greg Sankey, the commissioner, when it starts out with, I can remember 2 years ago, he's making jokes about Sankey costing his son a scholarship because he fined him. I mean, that's Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin making jokes about Nick Saban, but then when he's talking about what Saban meant to him, he said at the electronic when he came in to the meetings, one of the first guys he saw was Saban, and Saban gave him a hug. So those are kind of things that you talk about, life and death situations. Sometimes sport does reflect life. So we're seeing Lane Kiffin be a little more human, possibly social emotions, because let's be honest, most coaches know how to put on, okay, this is my recruiting face. This is my media face. This is my locker room. Coaches are very good about putting on faces, and I think Lane had a rough time putting on what was normally, and rightfully so, his SEC media face.
Well, we got stories to write, or this guy does at least. So be sure to check theeagle.com for all of our coverage from SEC Media Days. We'll be back each day doing a little bit of recap videos. So stay tuned for more coverage here from Dallas.